In a state prison in America, there was a prisoner who is a mafia boss for illegal goods, and he was being visited by his son, Dobbs. Since Dobbs' father was arrested, Dobbs continued all his illegal business because he's the only son. Dobbs promised to immediately release his father even though his father was only arrested a week ago. The mafia boss ordered his son to run their business well and neatly while he was in prison. After that, Dobbs and his men went to a bar to refresh their minds for a moment. At the bar, Dobbs saw the news on TV that one of America's best former special forces, Lee Gunner, has received many awards from the president. It was because Gunner had succeeded in eliminating dozens of terrorists in Afghanistan who always threatened America. At the same time, Dobbs just realized that the bar he was visiting now belonged to Gunner. Even Gunner himself was there because he was on leave. One of Dobbs' men, who didn't know that the bar belonged to Gunner, was bothering Gunner's wife. Of course, this made Gunner annoyed and immediately attacked that annoying man. Seeing several of his men helplessly beaten by Gunner, Dobbs approached him then apologized. Dobbs promised to leave the bar immediately, as long as Gunner never bothers him again. After Dobbs and his men leave, the police come after receiving reports from the people that there had been a commotion at Gunner's bar. Gunner explained that it was just a small commotion and he had dealt with it. The police then asked Gunner not to be brutal, especially now that he was on leave after returning from his mission in Afghanistan. 1 hour later, Gunner and his wife came home, and they immediately had dinner with their family. Gunner had 2 sons, Travis, the elder one, and Jack, the youngest. Gunner said that tomorrow he would camp in the middle of the forest. He hoped that Travis and Jack would come with him, so that they could have a holiday. Hearing that, Jack was very excited and he was willing to come with his father. But it was different from Travis, who refused to come because he had an appointment with his girlfriend. After dinner, Gunner talked with his wife. Here, Gunner's wife apologized because tomorrow she couldn't go to camp. She preferred to look after the bar because it was busy with visitors lately. Gunner didn't mind that, but he was still going to force Travis to come with him. The next day, Gunner and Jack were seen preparing to go camping in the forest, but Travis wasn't there because last night he had gone to his girlfriend's house. Gunner immediately went to Travis's girlfriend's house to forcibly pick his son up. At first, Travis' girlfriend's father didn't let Gunner in, but he still insisted and went into the room. There, Gunner found Travis sleeping with his girlfriend. Firmly, Gunner woke Travis up and took him out. Before leaving, Gunner scolded Travis' girlfriend's parents for allowing them to sleep together. Gunner then was picked up by his best friend and they went to the forest to camp. Arriving in the middle of the forest, before setting up the tent, Gunner invited Travis and Jack to go around first while enjoying the view. That evening, Gunner and the others were enjoying a campfire in front of their tent. Travis, who at first didn't want to come along, looked happy because he didn't expect that the camp would be this exciting. Because it was already late at night, Gunner ordered his 2 sons to rest because tomorrow they would go hunting. The next morning, Gunner invited everyone to go hunting by riding an ATV motorbike. But on the way, Gunner found something strange because many animals had died and the river was so dry. Feeling that something was wrong, Gunner asked Jack and Travis to wait while he and his friend went to check around. Not long after, Gunner and his friend were shocked because they found a factory for making narcotics in the middle of the forest. It turned out that the factory belonged to the mafia boss who had been imprisoned, and it was now managed by Dobbs, his son. Gunner didn't want to take risks, so he decided to leave. But unfortunately, Gunner's friend stepped on a mine which instantly killed him. Due to the explosion, Dobbs' men started to come out, so Gunner had to fight them all. While Gunner was busy fighting Dobbs' men, Travis and Jack were caught by Dobbs and the others. Dobbs then shouted, asking Gunner to surrender because they had already captured his 2 sons. Hearing this, Gunner didn't want to just give up, and he immediately thought of another way to save his 2 sons. At the same time, one of Dobbs' men was seen sending the location to the DEA because it turned out that he was a DEA spy. Not long after, Dobbs was annoyed because Gunner didn't come out of hiding. He ordered several of his men to hunt down Gunner. In the middle of the battle, the DEA troops suddenly came, making Dobbs and his men immediately run away while taking Travis and Jack. The DEA troops arrested some of Dobbs' men, including Gunner, who they thought was Dobbs' henchman. Gunner then explained that he was not Dobbs' man. In fact, he was hunting Dobbs because he had kidnapped his 2 children. But the DEA troops didn't listen to him, asking Gunner to explain it in the office. Long story short, Gunner was detained in the DEA office and was about to be interrogated. Gunner swore that he is not part of Dobbs' men. He begged the chief of DEA to be released because he had to save his 2 sons who had been kidnapped. But the chief didn't believe it and instead thought that Gunnar was just making up a story. This made Gunnar emotional, so he attacked the chief of the DEA. Luckily, Gunnar was calmed down by one of the police who recognized him, and the police promised to release Gunnar as soon as possible. 30 minutes later, Gunnar's wife came. Here, Gunnar's wife was very angry because of Gunnar, their 2 sons were kidnapped. Gunnar's wife insisted that Gunnar had to take responsibility, saving their sons at any cost. At the same time, Dobbs contacted Gunnar because Dobbs thought that Gunnar had brought the DEA troops to the forest. Because of this, kilos of drugs were confiscated and now, Gunnar had to take responsibility. Dobbs asked Gunnar to return the drugs, which later would be exchanged for Gunnar's children. Gunnar swore that he never brought the DEA team into the forest because he came there just for camping. Even now, he was also being detained by the DEA team. However, Dobbs didn't want to hear whatever Gunnar's reasons were. Most importantly for Dobbs, Gunnar must be able to return all the drugs that were confiscated, because if not, Gunnar's children would be killed. Not long after, the police who knew Gunnar approached him. The police said that he had received permission to free Gunnar because he was proven innocent. Gunnar then asked if the police knew where he kept Dobbs's illegal drugs which had been confiscated. Gunnar said that Dobbs threatened to kill his children if the DEA team didn't return the drugs. But the policeman answered that he didn't know where it was. Besides, it couldn't possibly be done because later, it would become a big problem. After that, Gunnar was free, and like it or not, he had to think of another way to save his children. At night, Gunnar went to one of the nightclubs where Dobbs' men usually gathered. Gunnar managed to find one of Dobbs' men and he immediately beat him. After that, Gunnar asked where Dobbs had taken his children. At first, the man didn't want to reveal until Gunnar tortured him more and more, and because he couldn't stand the pain, the man then said that Gunnar's children were being held in the iron warehouse, which was Dobbs' second headquarters. Hearing that, Gunnar immediately left and headed to the warehouse. The next day, Dobbs was in the iron warehouse at his second headquarters. Here, Dobbs felt something was strange because Gunnar swore that he would never bring the DEA troops to the forest. In the end, Dobbs believed that one of his men was definitely a traitor. Dobbs quickly gathered all his men and then checked their cell phones one by one. As a result, Dobbs found the traitor and he immediately finished him off. After that, Dobbs rushed to his third base because he was sure that the traitor had given away the location to the DEA team. Dobbs also took Gunnar's youngest son, Jack, while Travis was left with several of his men. 20 minutes after Dobbs left, Gunnar came to save his children. He immediately massacred all of Dobbs' men there. Finally, Gunnar succeeded in finding Travis, his eldest son, but Jack had been taken by Dobbs. At the same time, the DEA troops, who had been given the location by the spy, came. Gunnar then asked Travis to go with the DEA team while he would go to look for Jack. At night, Dobbs was at his third headquarters. This place was immediately used as a new production site for narcotics to replace the first headquarters, which had been ambushed by the DEA team. Dobbs then came to Jack and asked if he was afraid. Jack answered that he was not afraid at all because he was sure that his father would definitely save him soon. Jack then said that Gunnar managed to finish off all the terrorists in Afghanistan, so finishing Dobbs' men off was an easy thing for Gunnar. Meanwhile, Travis has just been sent home by the DEA troops. His mother immediately hugged him because she was afraid his son wouldn't come back. At the same time, Travis got a message from Gunnar, asking him to go to the river near their house because he already had a plan to save Jack. Travis then immediately went to the river. When he got there, Gunnar asked Travis to search on the internet about a prisoner named Riker and his prison address. Travis quickly managed to get information about Riker, the mafia boss, and Dobbs' father. Travis also managed to get the location of the prison where Riker was being held. After that, Gunnar ordered Travis to return home, while he was going to infiltrate the prison to kidnap Riker. Apparently, at this time, Gunnar had been helped by several of his colleagues in the military to save Jack as well as catch Dobbs. Gunnar intended to kidnap Dobbs' father and would later be exchanged for Jack. Hearing that, Travis didn't want to go home because he wanted to come with his father to save his younger brother. As a result, Gunnar took Travis with him to carry out the mission. Long story short, Gunnar and Travis were on a military plane. Gunnar planned to parachute into the prison to kidnap Riker, while Travis should always be with Gunnar's colleagues. Once the location was right above the prison, Gunnar parachuted down. Before landing, Gunnar threw a smoke bomb, causing chaos throughout the prison. He then landed smoothly and entered the prison. Gunnar could knock out a guard and put on his clothes, disguising himself as a guard. Therefore, he could freely search where Riker was. It didn't take long for Gunnar to find Riker, and he immediately pretended to have been sent by Dobbs to get him out of prison. Without feeling suspicious, Riker immediately ran away with Gunnar through the back door. After they ran away quite far from prison, Gunnar's colleague and Travis came, immediately picked them up. On the way, Gunnar's colleague told Travis about Gunnar's greatness when he was on a mission in Afghanistan. Hearing this story, Riker realized that Gunnar was not the person Dobbs ordered. So secretly, Riker took a screwdriver from the car seat and then he tucked it into his clothes. 20 minutes later, Gunnar took Riker to change cars. Gunnar thanked his partner for wanting to help him. After that, Gunnar ordered Travis to go home with his colleague, while he would continue the mission alone. After Travis and his partner left, Gunnar finally said that Dobbs had kidnapped Jack, his youngest son. Therefore, Gunnar took Riker out of prison and intended to exchange him for Jack. Riker then asked if Gunnar was sure that Dobbs would accept his offer. Gunnar then said that if Dobbs refused, he would slaughter them all, including Riker. Meanwhile, Dobbs was on his way to deliver the illegal drugs. But not long after, Dobbs got a call from Gunnar who said that he was with Riker. If Dobbs wanted his father to be safe, he had to immediately hand over Jack today. Dobbs, who really loved his father, agreed with Gunnar's request. Dobbs also gave the location of the meeting point at an abandoned factory. Quickly, Gunnar went straight to the location mentioned. 30 minutes later, Gunnar arrived at the meeting point. He immediately contacted Dobbs and asked him to come out carrying Jack. Not long after, Dobbs and his men came out, holding Jack at gunpoint. At first, they agreed to let each other go, but when Riker was freed, Riker suddenly stabbed Gunnar using the screwdriver he was carrying. Gunnar was shocked and suddenly shot Riker, making him die. Seeing his father dead, Dobbs was furious and he immediately asked all his men to attack Gunnar. After successfully finishing all of Dobbs' men, Gunnar immediately chased Dobbs, who ran away and took Jack on a helicopter. At the same time, the DEA troops were coming back to help Gunnar. But unfortunately, they had left behind because Dobbs had managed to fly his helicopter, while Gunnar was somewhere. While he was on the flight, Dobbs ordered his right-hand man to finish off Jack, as revenge for Gunnar who killed his father. But without them realizing it, Gunnar had managed to infiltrate the helicopter, and this is what happens. Gunnar could finish off Dobbs' right-hand man, but then he was cornered. When Gunnar was about to be dropped from the helicopter, he got up and fought back. After Dobbs died, Gunnar realized that the helicopter was going to fall soon because it was badly damaged. Quickly, Gunnar took Jack down using a parachute. In the end, Gunnar could save Jack, his youngest son, and at the same time finish off the mafia boss who has long been a target of the DEA team.